Oh dear, we have an updated Addictive games list with some ridiculous titles that have been eating my time recently. My name's Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp. Do let me know the games you've been playing that are addictive, and I can feel your backlogs peering over the edge of the Switch going, oh no. What are the most addictive games I've been playing recently? Well, my name's Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. I'm going to start off with one that's old but gold, but it's eaten 100 hours of my time in the last month and a half, and it's Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Monolith really did nail their formula in my opinion. The combat here is incredible. It's so easy to get to grips with, and unlike the previous games where I found myself coming back to it and not having a clue what I was doing, there are lots of systems at play here so that you can catch up on the story, things in the menu, and it's just brilliant. Each character adds quite a bit to the combat, the way that you mix those and switch them up, and then there's synergies as they pair together to create these Ouroboros, as they're called. Well, they're just very cool, aren't they? Anyone that grew up watching Transformers is going to understand why. But the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 world is just a joy to be in. It sucked me in fully, and fighting those more difficult enemies just to get a little bit more currency, or the unique enemies that have a one-of-a-kind battle that you can actually repeat. It's been great and has thoroughly addicted me over the last month or so. Now this episode's sponsored by Son of a Gun. It's an intense action-packed top-down shooter. There are lots of different weapons that you can pick up. You've got 3 different slots that you can equip them to, and it's twin-stick controls, which I have to say are really precise. You've got 6 different characters, and you'll upgrade them as you go throughout the storyline, which is set over several different planets. And it's old school in the best possible way. Now, as you get the game's in-game currency, you can then put those points into, as I say, improving your character at the end of each stage, or you can buy ammo for your weapons. There are also grenades, and you can carry 2 different types. And there are 8 massive bosses in here. It's quality, it's proper old school in the best possible way. It's developed by Crank Goblin and published by Untold Tales, and it will take just 2.7 gigabytes to download, and we will have a full dedicated video for you, but maybe stick it on your wish list or check out our video when it drops. Once again, a thanks to Son of a Gun and Untold Tales for sponsoring this episode. Then one from Glen, we've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate, which is essentially the Turtles version of Hades. And the reason this really got us, I think, is because it has 2-player co-op. Now in single player it's a lot of fun for sure, and it follows quite a formulaic roguelite design that you'll be familiar with, multiple runs, different characters, having new exposition as you defeat the same bosses a second time, and eventually defeating Shredder in multiple different forms, and my goodness, that last fight is quite tough, but playing it with a friend, it just adds something to the experience, and we really enjoyed our time with it. That one is developed by Super Evil Megacorp, and as I say, Glen does have a full review if you want to go check it out. Then we've got the turn-based roguelite Showdown. It has a turn-based combat where every action essentially has to be planned at just the right moment. You have to position yourself, build up, and then unleash those attacks at just the right time. And Glen thought this was incredible. He just loved it. In fact, I think it came right up near the top of our best of the month list. It has a very sensible meta progression system where you'll be unlocking new characters as well as skills and attack moves, and it has that special sauce, that certain something that keeps you coming back for more. Really compelling. Certainly go check out his full review of that one. But it's that hybrid, that degree of deck building that's baked into it, where you got to defeat all those enemies on the screen by using those attack cards, and then they have a cooldown, and the playing field that you're in is so small that you're always in danger of dying, but buying those new cards means that there's never really a failed run per se, as you're always achieving something. Just quality addictive gameplay. Shiren the Wanderer got a little overlooked, I think, specifically the mystery dungeon of Serpent Coil Island, where you're joined by your talking ferret and working your way through the many floors of the mystery dungeon itself, defeating monsters, gathering up tons of loot, and there are a lot of things to make the experience more accessible, like tying certain magic moves to specific buttons. There's a hotbar, a mini-map, and you'll know the feeling with dungeon crawlers, where you just push to one more level, you go a little bit deeper, there's that risk and reward element to it, but also you almost can't stop yourself, can you? You're like, I've just got to go one further. If you enjoy those classic experiences, I think you'll really enjoy this. The only thing is, I'd say it's very expensive and you need to pick it up on a sale. Its RRP is 55 quid on Switch, which is ludicrous. World of Goo 3 quietly came out, and it features a 2-player co-op mode, which is a lot of fun. But obviously you can play through the whole thing solo. Now, if you played this back in the mobile days, I say mobile days like they aren't still a thing, but I mean, I don't play games on mobile really anymore. That's kind of, the Switch has filled that gap. But World of Goo 3, I mean, was it 15 years in the making or something ludicrous? And it's a lot of fun. It's the exact classic gameplay you always knew. You're trying to piece together these little blobs of glue. You've got a finite amount, and then you're gonna kind of help them reach their goal. This time around, they do a lot more with physics. So sometimes you're making things like hot air balloons. At others, you're directing the goo from one area to another, or sucking it up and filling another space. What was cool here are some of the boss fights. Like, you wouldn't think that you could create a boss fight in this environment, but they managed to pull it off, and they're actually really clever. Now, the addictiveness, I think, comes mainly for us, at least, from playing with a friend and just doing one more stage, just figuring out one more puzzle, and it's quick enough in terms of resetting that although you will fail a lot, it's not so frustrating. The only real issue we had were with some of the backgrounds where you couldn't see, there's like a targeting indicator on the screen, and you kind of couldn't see it blended into the bright background. But other than that, very compelling games. That's World of Goo 3. Pizza Tower is really solid. It might look a bit janky, like Ren and Stimpy meets Boogerman, but it is tight. The controls are great. It reminded me a bit of like the level structure of Krusty's Funhouse. Not in terms of obviously like the way the stages play out, but you have that hub area where you move from door to door, very 90s style, and then you enter the stage trying to collect up all the toppings for your pizza, and then once you've got them, you've got to speed your way out of the stage before the timer counts down to 0, and it has that compelling, I've got to collect every topping thing. So it will see you going back into the same stages. You'll fight bosses that are too difficult, at least initially, until you get to grips with them. But it's just a great game, like very Sonic inspired, as I say, those other games I mentioned, but also difficult to put down. You just make your way through the stages, and before you know it, you've sat there for a good 5 hours. If you're a fan of the anime, then that time I got reincarnated as a slime was way more fun than I thought it would be. On the one hand, you've almost got this, like, it's not like a farm sim or a pure sim game, but you're running this small town, gradually improving it and adding buildings to it. And then on the other, you're going out on real-time action combat runs from a side perspective with fast-paced combo moves, boss fights, some really cool systems actually to encourage score multipliers and constant chains of attacks. And man, does it get you in its loop. It's just got a really satisfying gameplay loop. So things like when you fight a boss, it'll give you a score, you know, the old classic. You'll be able to see how effective you were in combat, and that kind of encourages you to then get better. And also unlocking and learning new moves. Yeah, a lot of fun. I hadn't seen the anime before. I know in the comments a lot of you were like, it's amazing, you should watch it. But the game sure is addictive, so certainly worth considering if you're a fan, or even if you're not. I want to mention Dave the Diver because since we last spoke about it, it's had about 3 more DLCs. They just keep making this addictive little restaurant, sushi restaurant management come diving game better. And yeah, I've got all the time in the world for that. It has that real-time spearfishing element where you've got twin stick controls, shooting fish, fighting undersea bosses, but then decking out your shop in a variety of different items that you find. The new DLCs which add famous faces like Godzilla, and I think there's even a Dredge DLC as well. It's just brilliant. It's just a great game. Really very compelling again, and well worth your time. It might be something perhaps you haven't considered before, but it's great. Cat Quest 3 was surprisingly addictive. It's a real refinement of the formula. I mean, for one, as soon as you put pirates in a game, I like it more. I don't know if that makes me a little bit special, but I love pirates, man. And cats and pirates seems like a match made in heaven. This one has a really intricate gear system. So different weapons, you can have like heavy hammers, fast swords. There are different elemental effects that those carry, but you've got free reign around the Caribbean, as it's called, to kind of go and do what you want. Now, certain areas are leveled, so you might have a really high level. There's this ship that is basically a big rubber ducky, and if you were good enough, you could essentially go and defeat it from the get-go, but obviously you need to power up your own vessel, and that's almost an extra character this time around, because you can use that as an offensive weapon and use it to take damage, but if it gets sunk, you have to kind of hover in the area to repair it. So it adds a real nice new element to the overall gameplay, and you can move more freely in terms of dungeons as well, with optional ones in there, side quests. It's just a better game all round for me, much less linear than the previous two, and I'm annoyed really that we didn't get a full review of it out, because it would have been, I think, 90 plus easily. Perhaps we'll get a late review out, but yeah, great game, very, very compelling, and again, it has the 2-player co-op as well if you want to do that. Rusted Moss, now this is a great Metroidvania that I was playing through for review. Didn't finish it, so didn't release the review, but was hooked on it for like the 6 hours or so that I'd played. It has some lovely little mechanics. You've got this little hook shot that helps you move around the world. It's got a really interesting atmosphere to it, but that hook mechanic gives it a momentum that once you learn it, it's difficult to put down. It's just kind of, you find yourself flowing through the stages, and that's also used in terms of combat. But I hadn't seen or heard anything about Rusted Moss, so was quite keen to get something out. Maybe again, a late, I don't know, hidden gem style review. Let me know in the comments if that interests you. But it has a bunch of unique weapons as well. I think there are 8 different weapons in there, and a unusual melancholic atmosphere. There's something about this world. I will quickly mention a few honourable mentions that are absolutely addictive. I've played a bit of them over the last few months, but they're a bit older. Things like Suika Game, that's always good to come back to. Balatro, obviously, amazing deck builder / weird hybrid poker mashup that they released a ton of visual DLC for randomly. Factorio, if you can get to grips with the controls, my goodness, that game's amazing. And SteamWorld Heist 2 actually came out, didn't it? And we didn't cover that, but that's a good time. So yeah, a bunch of addictive games. Let me know the ones that you've been enjoying. I do hope that I haven't just damaged your backlogs again, but man, there are just a lot of good games, aren't there, on Switch? A thank you to our Patreons, our members, all of you that enjoy the content, and as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!